So sorry for the clickbaity title, but yep, that is the world's most lush, pure FM patch. There's no effects, no tricks going on. That is just straight FMs, aka phase modulation synthesis on the SY99. So let me take you on a tour on how we start with a simple sawtooth type waveform and create this wonderful sound. All right, so I'm going to demonstrate how we built up that sound from simple sawtooth waves. So on the SY99, we are using algorithm 42, and that is the two operator stacks. But I'm actually using the approach I showed in my Super Saws video from a number of months ago. I'm actually not going to be using the modulators to create timbre. I'm going to be using them to alter pitch and phase. So we're going to be doing self FM on the 135 carriers. So let's go ahead and walk through these. So I've got the sine waves on operators 1 and 3, and I've got the altered sine wave waveform 12 on operator 5. So this is operator 1 by itself. Now you're going to see here that we have self-modulation 1 to 1, 3 to 3, and 5 to 5. That's operators 1 feedbacks to 1, 3 feedbacks to 3, and 5 feedbacks to 5. So if we turn off our self-modulation, we have our sine wave. As we increase it, we increase the amplitude of all the integer harmonics, which is equivalent to a sawtooth wave. So that's what we have going on essentially on all of these guys. So let's go back to our operator page. So operator 3. Now you'll see on the output I have a slightly different amount of output level on ops 1 and 3. So technically 3 is a little brighter than 1. And I have a different output volume on number 5 as well. Again, to be a little different character. And again, I'm using the sine wave variant 12. So let me just show you again what happens with output level, because it's self-feedback. So as we raise the volume of the operator, you'll see it's soft but dark at the same time. And as we increase its output, obviously more feeds back. So that's why we're getting that increase in volume and brightness together. So I'm just going to go ahead and then play operator 5 here. And again, it's a sinusoid, but it's a slightly different version. It's the curvatures of the slopes are different. So it has a slightly different character. Now, when we play these all together, all the phases are synchronized, and this is the composite wave of them adding together. So now we want to make our sound wider. Classic thing that we're going to do is detune our operators or oscillators. Now, there's a couple different ways you can do that. One is a static typical detune that you're going to just shift the pitch by a couple of hertz. And we're going to use that technique. But in addition to that, I'm going to be using some slow modulation of pitch and phase using our modulating operators. So let's show you how that works first. So as you see, we are phase synced, no detune. Phase synced, no detune on operators 1 and 3. We look at operator 2, I have a fixed frequency of about 0.17 hertz, and that's just modulating operator 1. So that's going to phase and frequency shift it relative to operator 3. So the two of them together. So now you hear what sounds like a very slow detune, or actually it's more of a phasing effect because of how slow our frequency is. Now what's important about this is that that amount of pitch and phase shifting is constant per key, as opposed to standard detune. All right, so if I detune the operators from one another, so that's standard analog synth style. Every octave you go down, the beating halves, and every octave you go up, it doubles. As opposed to this version where it's the same. The reason why I want to point this out is that I'm going to be using phase offsets and detune offsets in every place possible in the SY99's AFM engine, because to simulate that spaciousness that we're hearing in the patch I played at the beginning, we want to essentially try to synthesize all the phase reflection pitch shifting that goes on inside reverberant spaces. So that's why we're going to be basically throwing the kitchen sink of modulations of pitch and phase at all our sawtooth waves in here. So let's progress on here. I'm just going to show you the 3-5 combo. Now operator 4 is much, much quicker. It's at 3 hertz and change. So now when we turn that on, that sounds more like a vibrato type effect. Okay. The operator 5-6, we've got a half sinusoid, so its behavior is going to be completely different, again at a completely different frequency. So now if you play those guys against each other, see it has that irregular wah, 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 in terms of the phase shifting. So we're going to turn them all on, so all the oscillators are playing with all their modulators, phase and pitch shifting. So now that's beginning to take on the character of a standard analog patch that might have some chorusing or multi-oscillator detuning. So we're going to step it up a little bit here, and I'm actually going to put some significant standard detune in here. And I'm going to go in, and now I'm going to turn off the phase sync. So basically now they're free running. But I'm also going to go ahead and put some variations of the offsets of them relative to each other. Just a taste, okay? Not a whole lot. So now we've taken our 3 sawtooth waves, and now they sound like this. Now you're getting the kind of variations and inconsistencies that you're much more familiar hearing from analog synthesis. So again. So that is a single element AFM 3 sawtooth wave patch here on the SY99. So we're going to doll it up a little more from the analog behavior. We're going to put some random pitch per key. And I'm going to go ahead and add a little vibrato. But I'm not going to just do one type of vibrato. I'm going to be 2 types of vibrato. This other one's going to be so subtle. Again, it's more for introducing pitch instabilities. There's a sub LFO on your SY series AFM engines, and I'm going to put a little bit of that. So the speed of 75 is very similar to the 51 here. It's about 20-30% less, so we're just going to have this gurgling sort of beating effect between the detunes. So now we've got so now we got a really good source for making our absolutely mega lush FM patch here, because this is just 1/2 of our sound that's going to combine to the total. So there's 2 parts where we're going to explore next. One is stereoizing it, and the other is the reverb simulation. Now I'm going to start with the reverb simulation before we go into the stereo components. So some of you sharp-eyed, experienced SY programmers might notice at the beginning it showed it as a 2 AFM and 2 AWM patch, and you're seeing here that the actual thing we've been hearing all along is element 4, which is of course an AWM element. So what's going on here? Let's show you. One of the strengths of the AFM engine here is that you have the option of sending your FM output to the sample side of the instrument to replace the actual waveforms. So you just select it down here. Obviously you have your regular waves and here, but you've got your AFM input. What this does, this takes the output of the AFM engine before its filters and sends it to this side. So you can process it separately in terms of the envelope volume dynamics and filtering. So I've sent it over here because I want this to go through with a envelope shape that's specific to being our main sound, as well as the filter being wide open. So this is really our raw sound. So why am I doing this? It's because I want to use the actual AFM element to create our reverberant type signal here. All right. So let's see. Good. So what do I mean by that? Essentially, we want envelopes that are very, very long. We want brightness to be much reduced, and we want the changes in the brightness over time to be different than our main sound. These are some tricks you can do to simulate what a reverb does to the sound when it's in a space. So again, this is our original sound. Now this is the part coming out of the AFM engine directly. So its enveloping is different, both for the filter, different resonances, different dynamics. So here you go. So now we're going to combine those together. So now you're sensing it's starting to get some depth in the internal of the harmonic and phase motion, because we have these two different sonic characteristics added up. And again, with the different envelopes, we've got that nice tail. So now we've got our building block of our stereo version of this. So how are we going to stereoize this? Well, the basics are we're going to have separate audio signals going to the two channels. But it's going to be a little more than that, in that we're not just going to copy this sound to both sides and spread it in the stereo field. We're going to utilize the strength of our FM engine to also have different phase characteristics between them. Because again, our ear detects spatialization based on phase and pitch differences on how all the various reflections come from a room in terms of a true acoustic space. So on the complementary side of the FM engine, let's walk through this. So we have our A and B sounds, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change my phase offset of operator 1 between the two sides. So one is 7, one is 14. On operator 5, I'm going to do the same thing. Let's make one, yeah, that's good. They're off by 14. And then this guy should be off by 7. Let's make him off by 7. What the hell? So now I've got different phase offsets for those three operators that are making our sawtooth waves. In addition, I have different rates of the modulators. So their phases and pitches are shifting different from one another in terms of them. So here we've got 0.395 versus 0.172. we've got 4.362 versus that 3.24. And then we've got 0.223 versus our 0.401. So now all these things are gurgling in a different phase space between these two portions. So now we're going to get a different perception when I put those in a right-left pan, because the signals will now be phase shifting differently. So let's see what else we're going to do here. The last coup de grace is we're going to put a little detune between the elements as a whole. And let's go to our sub LFOs, and we're going to have different amounts. So on the element 1 side, I've got this down to 40. So this is going to have a very much slower change. So it's going to be sort of like it's chorused against each other. So we've got, 16, give or take, inputs to pitch. And we've got 6 plus the offsets. So technically, 12 offsets and different behaviors in phase. So let's build this up one by one. So remember, this is still mono. So this is our dry number element 2-4 combo. This is our dry 1-3. This is our wet element 2. This is our wet element 1. Okay, so now we're going to turn all the components on. Let me turn this down a little bit. So now it's still a mono space, but now you're going to see how much larger this sound has gotten. Let's go to a single dry. Double dry. So those two guys have additional detune, those +3, -3 as I did before. And I'll go ahead and bring the two wet sides. So now the final thing we're going to address is the stereoization of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our wet signals and pan them pretty much hard right, hard left. I'm going to go actually 5 and 5. And then with our dries, we're going to do a little tighter image here. We're going to do 3 and 3. So now we're actually separating out those phase and pitch offsets from the mono space to the stereo space, so binaural as the term of the day. And now let's go through and assemble this piece by piece. So here is our dry element 2-4 combo. Here's our dry 1-3 combo. So we're going to play the dry components now in the stereo field. This is our element 2 wet component, farther panned to the side. And here's our element 1 right side. Here's them together. So you can hear a lot of schmear going on in there. We're going to put all of them together to get to the sound I played at the beginning. So that is a massively lush, non-affected FM sound. So coming up next, give me a second, I'm going to show you what happens when we go to our effects section and turn on the effects. Now you can see how great the SY99 sounds even by today's standards. Thanks for watching.